Good morning and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. As usual, we bring to you in-depth analysis and newspaper review. My name is Ololadi Adeomi. Let's get started. A look into the Vanguard newspaper today as a major headline. It says, Drama at Senate as Natasha security agents clash. Senator walks to NAS premises on foot after stoppage of a convoy. Blocked from accessing main building. I will approach appeal court to seek interpretation of legal impasse, Apoti Uduahan says. Activist Aisha Yesufu battles police overruling stopping senator. We acted on orders from above, security agent says. You can find this story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Bottom corner says Senate approved 2025-2026 external borrowing plan of $21.5 billion. You can find this story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Reconsider planned trip to Nigeria. US tells citizens, warns of kidnapping, terrorism, poor healthcare, others. You can find this story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Away from the Vanguard, straight into the Punch newspaper. Major headline from the Punch newspaper says APC may pick Ganduje's successor at make or break NEC meeting. You can find the story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Top banner says Senate okays Tinubu's $21 billion foreign loans. You can find the story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Bottom banner says Atiku warns Okpebolo Wike insist on Obi's visit clearance. Away from the Punch newspaper, let's take a look into the Nation. Major headline on the Nation says APC PDP kickstart 2027 plans with key NEC meetings. Natasha supporters create scene at National Assembly entrance. You can find the story on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. Away from the Nation, let's look into the Guardian newspaper. Front page of the Guardian says suspense as Tinubu APC neck meet over zoning new chairman. You can find the story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Bottom banner says tension as security operatives deny Natasha access to National Assembly. Stakeholders warn of setback for Nigeria, Africa as US exits UNESCO. That's all we have on the front page of our newspaper for today. Join us after the break for a quick analysis of some of our top stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Ololadi Adeomi. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Gbero Lajuigbe, the Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being with you.
So let's take a look into our first story for today. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan was suspended in March 2025 for 6 months by the Senate after accusing the Senate President of sexual harassment and rejecting a new seat assignment. On July 4th, 2025, a federal high court ruled her suspension unconstitutional and excessive, advising the Senate to reinstate her while also fining her 5 million naira of contempt. On July 2022, Natasha publicly announced her intent to resume duties, citing the court's decision and requesting the restoration of her police security detail. On arrival, Natasha was denied entry as the security personnel locked the gates. The Senate claims the court's ruling is advisory rather than binding. Do you support this? Is there any constitutional provisions to support their view?
Well, assume, I don't know why do we choose a very disgracing route when we have a critical issue that will impact on our nation and its institutions. It is not expected that an institution like the Senate will be the one that will be dragging Nigeria into opprobrium. I'm saying this assuming without conceding that the court advised the Senate on legal issues. And I'm now asking the Senate, if Nigerian court cannot advise you on legal issues, who will do that? It was not advice that was given to Senate. It was not an advice that the court gave to Senate. The court built the premise on which the court built what they call advice is that one, in a year, you are expected to hold sessions in 181 days. And you went ahead to suspend a senator in a representational democracy for 180 days out of 181 days. So what type of representation? You are not only punishing the legislator, you are punishing our constituents who elected her to represent them in the Senate. That is the premise on which that advice is built on. It was a premise of sound constitutional order as enshrined in the Constitution of Nigeria. It was built on that. So it couldn't have been advice. It followed a logical sequence of the incompetence of Senate to so suspend a member and punishing the constituents. The court did not say you can't punish your member, but not for that long. What the Senate could have done, a responsible Senate, is to either, okay, we are based on the court, in order not to disgrace Nigeria, that so people will not be seeing us as a very lawless society. Okay, if she has spent 3 years, 3 months or so let us just cut this in off, or you reduce it even further. The court told you categorically that you can't suspend a member for that day because it's unconstitutional. Because what you are looking, when you vote for an individual, you are voting for a political party. You are voting, those voting for them, reserve the right to be represented. And there will be no representation without participation of the person that you have elected as a senator. You are denying participation, you are denying her, you are denying the senator participation. Then you are denying the constituent representation. It's double jeopardy. So all this egocentric discussion that is going on in the Senate is uncalled for. You can't subdue our institution to become a tool that an individual will begin to use for vendetta. That is just it. It's unconscionable that Nigeria will become a football pitch in the hands of those that they have elected. Lawless lawmaker is unheard of in any climate. Have you watched the parliamentary discussion in the UK before? The Prime Minister will be made, they will make jest of him, and in fact, confront him, attend, vitriously confronted. And they know that they have a national duty and not a personal issue.
So let's talk.
They are just bringing Nigeria into ridicule. That is what is going on. The Senate has the right responsibility to obey law. You don't go and pick and check that they didn't ask you to. As a matter of fact, they didn't ask Natasha to even apologize to the Senate. The apology is to the court. The apology to the court because of what the court considered to be contemptuous of his order. Order that nobody should hold media, this thing and everything. And the caricature, the so-called caricature apology that she wrote. So the order was made for apology to the court for as part of punishment to purge her of the guilt of contempt of the court.
So let's talk about the risk.
And I don't know what we want to gain in all this. Because this thing is ridiculous. You want to make people to believe that, and one thing I have to even blame our court too. Talking tongue in cheek is part of the problem we have, creating confusion. Ruling of court everywhere must be unambiguous, clear, and should not need further interpretation, because the duty of the judiciary is to interpret law, not to further confuse or confound it. People go to court because they want to be clear of what the law says. When you go to court and you get to a level where your judgment can be manipulated, where there will be need for further interpretation, what is that telling you? A very corrupt judiciary that has turned judgment into what happened in what do they call it? This ringing of bell in Basa economy. Basa economy, where you want to buy something, this one has to tell his price, this one has to tell his price, and the bell will be wrong, so that maybe the highest bidder will take it. So they leave that room, and that is the confusion in the type of judgment we are getting. But in this way, if they follow it logically, it was not an advice that court gave, because court has faulted the suspension on the basis of the appropriate section of the Nigerian Constitution that make it outrightly illegal, outrightly unconstitutional, and that is what the court described, to use the word of the court, that the Senate outreached itself by suspending an elected senator for 6 months, because the constitutional requirement of sitting in a year by both the House of Rep and the Senate, each of them, is 181 days. You can't suspend an individual for 180 days, which is 6 months, out of that 181 days, which you must sit.
Okay, so let's look into the risk involved in all of this. What risk do you think this actually poses in a democratic society that we are finding ourselves in, as well as what risk do you think it poses on the Constitution and the court as well?
The greatest risk is reputational risk. It rubbishes the reputation of Nigeria as law-abiding people. When institutions disobey law or try to circumvent judgment of the court, then, and the institution that is doing this is a lawmaking institution, the confidence external people have in that type of country will be waning. And the implication is that they will not have confidence in such economy, even to invest, even to do business, because of the type of justice administration system they are witnessing, and the copious desire of the arms of government to be reckless, to be lawless, and to obey law in its breach. So they are marching on the Constitution of Nigeria. They are decimating the court and the judicial system, and those pose reputational risk to the entity called Nigeria, to the economy that we are trying to build, and to even our international stamina in the market, in the global market, the global political market.
Okay, so there have been arguments going on social media as well. People have been talking about how they can interpret this security stopping the senator as political intimidation. How would you interpret the use of heavy-handed
It's part of the
security.
lawlessness. It's still part of lawlessness we are talking of. Even if there is a decent way of doing something, you are not going to tell security to go and embarrass your people and everything. Things can be resolved. That's why we are saying that, look, when you are talking of justice, assuming that even Senate is seeking for justice, justice is not a one-way track. That has been established for a very long time. There must be justice to the Senate, justice to Natasha, and justice to the nation called Nigeria. Is there any justice to the Senate? No, justice to the Senate. The Senate has assumed what we call power over in the context of power relation, a brutal force, very crude and lawless, that think that it should live above law, thereby violating the critical aspect of rule of law, which are supremacy of law, equality before law, and civil liberty. Those have been uprooted by the decision and action of the Senate. Is there justice to Natasha? That has been obtained on the court. And if they did not believe in the ruling of the court, if they felt that the court ruled in their favor, why did they appeal the ruling? Why did the Senate appeal the ruling? And if you appeal, that should not hold the judgment of the first instance, which is the High Court, except the appellate court grants you interim order. But that was not in this case. So there is no justice for Natasha for now. The third leg of justice is that, is there justice for Nigeria? How do you feel when you see this thing? They are killing people across Nigeria. Nigeria are talking of hungers, but your cardinal objective now is to fight Natasha. How is that going to solve the problem of Nigeria? The problem of hunger, the problem of insecurity, the problem of almost ubiquitous lawlessness, rampaging kidnappers everywhere, marooning Nigeria and destroying people's life, forming, capturing territory, and creating caliphate where terrorists and bandits are now collecting taxes from Nigerians, from villagers, from communities in Nigeria. A country that has government, and then we feel that prioritizing Natasha, Akpabio, sexual escapade, or whatever should be the concern of, should be our national concern. It's terrible. It's tragic. We are not even talking of rhetorically. Is it not good for us to even ask the question? In 2015, EFCC arrested Akpabio for taking 108.1 billion naira of Akwa Ibom money. Then the question is, where is EFCC on this? That should even be the question we should be asking. For accountability, for transparency. And in our very eyes, the same person became the Senate president. And we are not bothered about that. Our issue is on Natasha Akpabio, sex issue that borders on personal morality. Our concern should be that, okay, there should be dispense of justice, not that you use your office to subdue the issue, to suppress the person to the extent that you are even extending it to frustrate her representation, the representation that she owes her constituents in Kogi Central. What is that telling us? That we have octopus people who have prioritized dictatorial tendencies over and above national interests. At the end of 8 days, 8 years now, or 4 years, you will see that they have wasted Nigerian time. They have wasted everybody's time. Nigeria has not moved from the 11th kilometer to the 12th kilometer of this development journey. That is what we get from a Senate like this, from a National Assembly like this, that prioritize the minor over the major.
Away from that, into our second.
So Nigeria, we have a very long way to go.
Away from that, into our second story. So, Nigerian Senate approved President Bola Tinubu's external borrowing plan of over 21 billion US dollars and authorized $2 billion in domestic borrowing to fill budget gaps. The funds have said the funds will be directed into major sectors including infrastructure, healthcare, education, security, housing, etc. Are these strategic borrowings, a sign of fiscal desperation?
Well, I think it's always too late for Nigeria to know, because the question you should ask yourself, they lie to Nigeria, they have removed subsidy, they are making more money now. Where is the money? If you are making money, where are you borrowing? Where is the money they are making from the floating of the currency? The question to us is, where is the money they have been making from their so-called policy of fuel subsidy removal and the floating of naira, which they have eventually destroyed to its root? And it's still the same trajectory they are following. Borrowing upon borrowing, no plan on what to use the money for. When Nigeria has no access to return on their so-called investment on infrastructure, a government that is building 30 kilometers out of 750 in 2 years, it's not a serious government that is going to help develop. It's not. So what is going on is very, very pathetic. And I have said it. Except those who are ignorant of economic principle, what has happened in the last 2 years is that the money collected, the revenue are collected from the poor to enrich the state. They are not making any money. They are just impoveration, squeezing money out of stone of the poor, out of the hands of the poor, the wretched, and giving it to the state. That is what is going on. Because before, the simple analysis is that the petrol you are buying for 1,000 naira before, you are buying for 10,000 now. Thereby, government makes profit, what they call gain of 9,000, they will send to the state. So that is where the money coming from, because it violates the principle of economy that a non-produce any money without production, even if it is tax. It is when there is production going on that you have people that are employed that will pay tax. That you have companies existing and making profit that will pay tax. But companies are closing down. People are losing jobs. Young ones are not getting employed. So is that an economy? At the end of this, whether 4 years or 8 years or whenever they finish, you will find out that Nigeria just embarked on another hopeless journey, like we took under Buhari. So Nigeria should know how to hold their leaders accountable and be reasonable and sensible and not be rubbishly political, supporting what is not correct, what is wrong, supporting a policy that outrightly resumpted and beneficial only to those in power who have chosen the hedonistic life of ostentation and not the ordinary people that are looking for what to eat on daily basis. Nigeria is a country where economy, the manual for the growth of economy is the poor, while the beneficiary, the reapers, are the. So that table must be changed before you see a society where there is economic sanity. And every institution, legislation, judiciary, to begin to bring up propaganda, subdue opinion, restrict opposition, and decimate alternative ideas and policies.
The plan is said, to include major infrastructure projects like the railway, healthcare, education, and housing. Which do you believe will actually yield strongest socioeconomic return, and why?
They should stop the stealing. If they want to go, they should go and borrow now. They are not going to do anything. That's what I'm telling you. They are not going to do anything. For 2 years, which one have they done? I just gave you the so-called super highway, coastal route. You can't be constructing road at almost 4 billion per kilometers, and you are doing 30 kilometers out of 750 and everything. You look, Nigeria does not know how to track success. That is the first problem of a country. A government has a tenure of 4 years, and you award a contract. Assuming you award a contract for 750 kilometers that should be finished in 4 years, the first year of that contract, you must be able, plus the teething problem. Let me use the teething problem. When you are meeting with the contractor for 470, the first years you must be able to deliver maybe 150 kilometers. Then the subsequent years, maybe 200. Why the first year was not 200 was because maybe the teething problem before you start the project. So it's not excusable. It's not working. Look, activity is not productivity. Activity is not productivity. They want to embark on road to where? Railways that will be abandoned. The one you are borrowing, and that is what has killed our economy, killed our naira. What are they borrowing? Are they borrowing naira? Is it not dollar? When they borrow now, that dollar will be injected into the economy back, and it will give you the semblance that things are changing. Nigeria's naira is appreciating. It's a manipulated economy. So if they borrow to do that, to provide service and everything, and it's not corroborating with timing, because if you borrow money to do project, that project before the maturity, you should be able to deliver that project. For example, you borrow and you want to borrow within your administration to build road, and you start the road 10 years, the road is still you have not delivered it, and there is variation up and down. Do they come back to tell us about that? Do they come back to tell you about the variation they are making, the corruption that is going on there? They are not borrowing for Nigerians. They are borrowing for themselves. A government that is borrowing the president should not have even considered having additional plane costing $150 million in this type of economy. And somebody says borrowing. Borrowing for who? How? The young people that are likely unemployed? The children that are out of schools? So those are the issues. Nobody is building any future for any Nigerian. That is the plain fact. It's for them. It's for their children. And I like that. I was jokingly telling somebody that Nigerians, out of frustration, when they have become extremely impotent and unable to do anything about their leader, they say that posterity will judge. Posterity has abandoned Nigeria. It's not judging anybody. Because look at what happened now. But Tinubu has just appointed his son as chairman of a bank. So is posterity judging him? Nigeria should stand up to their leaders and hold them accountable. Otherwise, to this shenanigan that is going on.
Thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
That was Mr. Gbinro Lajoigbe, Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. Thank you very much for staying with us. Remember, you can follow us on all our social media platforms seen on your screen and on our website at www.vanguardngr.com. I am Ololade Adewumi.